Adrian.
Mute.
I will be the change that I want to see in this world. I will be the change that I want to see in this world.
Hey, so
last time we see
whoops. That wasn't supposed to happen, but that's quite good actually. So hi, welcome to Candid Chat. We are host down at the moment, a little bit of technical problem, but we're here. We're here to tell you and talk to you about the reality and questions that people may have. You posed a question. My name is Kerry, and we're all in this together, raising awareness around topics and discussions, candid talk. That's what we're about. We're about raising awareness on things that you may not even have realized. So the topic that you raised, there was a topic that was raised, and it was about all of the what you're seeing in the media, the crime, the knife crime, the rates, where it's happening. And it brings you back to, where's it all coming from? Where's it all coming from? So, we're in. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So, you know, we can wait. Just one more to go. And
he's on his way.
Lovely. It's all right. So we're just talking about where is all this coming from, all this crime coming from? That's what we're talking about. If we summarize the acts of crime, they are there, but where is it coming from? So we talked about a little bit about county lines and have to decipher that out of what that meaning of that word is, but also where is all this crime coming from? And I can sit here and answer that like that, but I have to make my life relatable to something that's going on in reality. So I have to go backwards of where I joined my family, outside of my family. So Joe Bloggs, would you like to elaborate on anything that I'm saying?
Well, in relation to where the crime is coming from, and you say go backwards, yes, you've got to look at your family and those surrounding you. But something you touched on, that the county lines is something that the police have given that name to. Okay? They call it county simply because, for argument's sake, we're here in Suffolk, and if you go over the border to the west of us, you come into Cambridgeshire. So straight away, what you have there is you have Suffolk Police, one constabulary, and then you have Cambridgeshire Police as another constabulary. So the fact that criminals or persons are going from east to west or west to east, whichever way you want to look at it, and crossing that border, that is where the term county lines has come from. But they are using that as a buzzword now, for people to be more aware. So for argument's sake, if you had a load of lads from Liverpool turn up down here with a very strong Scouser accent and were up to no good, you'd start to concept in your mind that, hey, this may be county lines taking place. But you know, the police are the ones who have the intelligence on that. But we know what's going on. We all see things and hear things, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So give us another point of angle from it, any one of you guys. another angle and another take from this at the moment before we go deeper into where it's coming from.
I think their mics are on mute.
Yeah, they are. Hello.
Yeah, that's it now. One more to go.
Yeah, I don't have a sort of an idea as such. I can only go by what I've been told when I've engaged with young people. I think it's more than one sort of issue, basically, or more than one contributing factor. So yeah, I just find it's not something that I would personally try to break down in 5 minutes, because it's just there's so many layers to
There
it.
is, but this is what we're about, raising the awareness around some of those layers, so parents out there or guardians out there can understand where this is coming, some of it's coming from, and what they can do to help friends, family, neighbors, children. You know, it doesn't just stem from the child, because it's going to affect the parent or guardian raising these children, and then it comes about reputation, where it's all coming from. But if I dig deep, and this is what I said I would do, I like to dig deep. If I go back to my childhood, I sought a family outside of my dysfunctional family, and in doing that, you end up taking a position and a role for those that are pretty much going through the same thing in dysfunctional families. So your family, my family, starts to be what I consider, they call friends, that turn into fam, and they go long term, you know, but you end up doing acts of crimes and acts of things you shouldn't really be doing. You should be able to be a kid, but you ended up growing up a little bit too quickly because of the things that we've seen in our surroundings, in our environment. And for myself, I went on a secret life of destruction and a downward hill spiral. And my first attempt of suicide was 13 years old. But before that, the self-harm element of it is there. And I'm reaching of finding my happiness within other people that are going through similar things to myself. So they become my family. I end up doing drink. Oh, I wasn't really a drug person, but I was drugged. So therefore, I ended up doing the drinks, promiscuity, and being there. And it was older people, older people than myself. I was never interested in the younger people. I wanted to grow up, and I wanted to grow up fast. And for myself, I found my world in an older. I found my family in an older generation, and I was being taken advantage of, not even knowing that. And acts of crime come in. You know, I've done things that perhaps I'm not proud of, but even down to violence, even down to, you know, defending myself, defending my corner. And it's about reputation. And, you know, for myself, I've even had a gun at my head, you know, and that's scary, frightening. And if I had to stay in the same environment, I don't know how my life would be. But to come away, be able to escape that is where you can breathe. But hey, the world's a hard place. So you know, hearing youngsters and how tough it is out there, it's these youngsters are having to grow up before their time. They're not able to be a child anymore. So that's just my version. How about you guys? Somebody else, please take it away.
Yeah, same here, similar thing, really. I mean, my dad was in the army. My mum was working full time. You know, my siblings are quite a bit older than me. I was the youngest of the family. You know, it was like, okay, bring myself up sort of thing, drag myself up. I wanted somebody to be there, you know, and I got into the wrong crowd, started skiving off school. My first attempt at suicide was 15, 14, 15, I can't remember the age now. Overdose. The same sort of thing, really.
Yeah, let's try to try not to promote method as
Okay,
much as we can.
sorry.
Okay, you're just learning. This is all you know. It's all part of it, isn't it? Changing the words, changing the vocabulary, and what
Yeah,
message we're projecting out there, getting in the right hands. You know,
yeah,
positive messages going out there,
you
and
know,
not one of which goes in there.
yeah.
Go ahead, Doug. Well done.
It's like I say, got into the wrong crowd. Like a piece of meat, really. Sleeping with one person, next person's, you know, next person, so on and so forth. Being taken advantage of left, right, and centre. Oh, just go nick that from the shop for me, you know. Oh, I'll give you some money for it, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, all right then, you know, somebody's paying me a bit of attention, you know, somebody's like, you know, similar sort of thing. And my life was going that way, you know. Landed up with a bloke 12 years older than me, had a baby at 17. Go figure, you know, but I'm glad that I got out of that, you know. You know, the same sort of thing as you, really.
I mean, the thing is, back then you used to be able to physically fight, and you know, you just get on with it, and it will be resolved. Now it's not that way at all.
No.
It's horrible. It really is literally horrible, the stories that you hear, and one of which, you know, the pain that it leaves behind, the trauma that continues for the loved ones that are losing these lives, you know, and then how did it get so bad? Why, you know, how did it get so bad? So we've got to take it back to the environment and peer pressure. Because even though you're at home, there's another world out there that you're up against.
That's it. That is it, isn't it? That's the thing. I mean, it's like I see it. You know, you know where I live. You know, you see it. You know, you see the youngers. You see the olders putting the pressure on the youngers, and it's like you know exactly what's happening. And it's like, oh my god, and it's horrible. And then you hear the next day, oh, you know, there's been a gun like down the road, you know, shot at a house, you know, there's a baby in that house. You think, what, you know? And it's like, you just fear for everybody's life all the time. And then you hear of like somebody being stabbed like 300 yards from where you used to live, you know, but that was like a friend of my son's, or a friend of like somebody else's son, you know, but that is somebody's son, you know, and you live with it daily. And it's like, why do they have to stab each other? But some of the reason why they do stab each other is because of where the drugs can be on that person, or where they can be carried on that person. I think Joe Bloggs would agree with me there, that it's where they can be carried on that person.
Yeah, I think again, the mindset of people is what is really at question here. I have known people to have been stabbed, as you say, in particular places because the assailant believed that the drugs were being concealed in you know, that part of the torso, for argument's sake. So if you imagine now a large, so a medium-sized bag of heroin wrapped or cocaine wrapped, you know, we've all seen how they, you know, they come in the packages like little bricks and stuff. If you've got that concealed on your person and somebody stabs you with one of those, you know, 12-inch long Rambo knives, for sure that is going to penetrate through that drugs and then into your system. So it's like a, pardon the pun, a double-edged kill. You're going to be, pardon me, physically wounded by the tip of the blade, but that blade is going to enter your system with, you know, far more drugs than your system can handle. In particular, if you're stabbed in a dark alley and no one don't find you for 5 or 6 hours, you know, you're certain to die. But the other issue is with the package. The package is probably worth 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds. So when you stab this person, realistically, you want the package as undamaged as possible, because you're now going to go and turn that 50-gram package into 200,000-300,000 pounds very quickly indeed, which obviously then makes the cycle bigger and bigger. If you don't, for argument's sake, do your homework, the chances are you probably won't even get to, you know, use that package, because there'll be somebody now chasing you for retribution for the killing and the package also. So it's a continuous cycle that just is going round and round and round and round. But something you said earlier, Shell, about the elders giving the youngsters, you know, the drugs or the money to hold or whatever it is they're getting them to do. That's nothing new. That's always been going on. The problem with that is that perhaps back then, like if you saw how the Krays operated, they, you know, people from far and wide feared the Krays, for argument's sake. Well, it's not argument, it was the truth. But they conducted all their business at their mum's house. Okay? Nothing wasn't said outside anywhere in any pub. As many pubs and clubs as they owned, business was not conducted there. It was conducted, you know, at their mum's house. And even as roughy tufty as they both were, along with their older brother, who you don't really hear much about, Charlie Kray. I think he died recently, about a year ago, not so long ago, if my information is correct. Their mum would still give them a clip round the ear as big as they were, because there was an element of respect there. The problem is now, same setup, there's people running their operations just as I've described, but, you know, your mum's on the corner, yeah? Your mum's driving a Porsche Cayenne Jeep with chrome rims and more gold than you can wear on one person, you know? And the sons and the daughters are all showing what they've got. And there isn't really any standards anymore. Nobody keeps anything private. That then breeds the hostility, because the people across the road who don't have nothing, they're looking and thinking, oh, they got everything. I'll just go and take it from them. You know, they won't miss it. And there you have the ignition for then what happens next, retaliation and so on and so forth. And the point I was alluding to is that everybody on every street knows what's going on. That is the bottom line. But for argument's sake, my neighbor doesn't want to come and tell me that he's just seen my son down the road doing something he shouldn't do, because he's probably afraid that I'm going to beat him up or do something to him. So he turns a blind eye to it. Do you see what I mean? Equally, I go out and I see your son down the road with a group of boys he shouldn't really be with, but I just think, well, they're youngsters, and I don't call you and tell you. Yeah, and it's that attitude that has entrenched why now the children, and I say children because it's not young teenagers, 17, 18 no more. It's 9, 10, and 11 that you've got to be worried about. Yeah.
Do you think it's fair? Because example, one of my kids is 16.
Mm-hmm.
His friends came in the other day,
mm-hmm.
and one of them had their hood up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think, call me old-fashioned, but I think that's disrespectful.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I was brought up the same way. Take your hat off in the house and shoes off, and you don't wear a jacket in the house and all sorts of things like that. Yeah,
absolutely. They were sat in my garden, and I said to him, I said, could you please take your hood down whilst you're in my garden or in my house?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said, because it's disrespectful. And he muttered under his breath, what the fuck? And it was like, no, I've asked you to remove your hood. Could you please do it?
Yes.
I said, you're not the only one, so don't think I'm picking on you.
Yes.
You know, and it was like the attitude with it. And it's like, well, either you do it or there's the door.
Well, yeah, fair enough. He's in your house, isn't it? You know?
Absolutely.
You know, even on that, I think it's even for your son to say to him beforehand, like, you know, when you step into my mum's house, this is how it goes. Because that's how I had to be. Otherwise, it was what limited entry I had, you know.
That's it.
It would have been scuppered real quick. So, but yeah, I think that again, with the hoodie thing, I got the same issue with my son, who's now 17. Day and night, he's got this stupid hoodie on. I always say to him, you know, like, are you? It's summer. Are you cold? You know, why have you got it on? But I understand what it's all about. It's like a mini gang code culture, you know. If you got your hood up, then you're cool, you know. But then if you got your hood down, then you're a wimp, sort of thing, you know. So even in the house, you know, you've got a hood on. I'm like, why? You know, I just don't get it, you know. But I do get it if that makes sense. On the flip side, you know, the hood and the face mask are trademarks now of these youngsters, that they've branded it as a fashion, and it hasn't helped that the industry leaders have gone and made, you know, the double gas mask, you know, like what they used to wear in World War II. They've made that a fashion item that you can go and buy. So the problem with that now is that when I put one of those on and I walk into Barclays Bank with it, and they send armed police for me and threaten to shoot me, I'm going to say, no, Your Honor, no, it's fashion. I bought this legitimately, you know, down the road, and especially in these corona times, the paper one weren't no good, so I wore this. But that's the excuse everybody's going to be using, you know.
Absolutely.
I know, just briefly, let someone else talk for a bit. David Cameron tried to outlaw the use of the hoodie and those gas masks. That's why you're not seeing them about so much, because they did pass that law. But if you want one, you can get one. That's not a problem. Just go down Camden Market and you'll pick one up, you know. So there you go. London, Camden Market.
Yep. But
you mean those ones that look like a frog thing?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like World War II one. Yeah.
I bought my son one of them.
How long ago?
Many years ago, when it first come out. But the thing is, you know, then when you look at those things, you think, oh, you know, are we contributing to the way that we're raising these the way not raising? Are we contributing to what we're accepting from these younger generations? You know, I people often say, mind your business. I always believe that we're supposed to hear, we've got to raise this village together. And if kids are doing something wrong, you can say, oh, come on, you're representing your parents. There is a way that they want approaching. And if you can muster that, then you'll get on their level. So you've got to be cool sometimes, you see. Can you speak their language so they don't turn on you? That's the thing that they're looking at nowadays.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but where I disagree is like when you say learn their language, I think we're supposed to be teaching them the language insofar as that, you know, most of these kids, and it ain't only now the kids, before it was the kids not paying attention, but even in the schools, there's nothing for them to pay attention to, if that makes sense. All of the skills that you'd need, like plumbing, mechanic, carpentry, all of those type of things, they've been taken away for paper qualifications. Okay, so everything is vocational. You know, do answer a couple of questions and that's it. And kids come out, and then somebody says, "Oh, I need you to go and fix that car," or "I need you to, you know, change a light bulb." These are things that young people can't do. I've come across it in the last 3 years in particular. The day job has allowed me to see, you know, in depth what is missing. So don't be surprised if, you know, a 25-year-old tells you he doesn't have a driving license. Okay, it's not a crime, but, you know, he's never used a petrol lawnmower before. He's never changed a light bulb before. He's not done anything that would make you think, well, this is somebody who's been living on planet Earth. Where have you been? But more importantly, where have your guardians been that you have not experienced anything? Hence why they end up, you know, into crime and then coming through the doors and ending up back, you know, in my presence on a daily basis to try to rehabilitate them with common sense, and them, pardon me, doing whatever it is they've been tasked to do to repay their debt to society. You know, there's a lot that is left to be desired, but again, we're not enforcing that on them. So, you know, as my mum used to say, you could take a horse to the pond, but you can't make it drink. So if you're not forcing goodness onto these children, they're not going to be receptive of any of it. It's just going to pass over them. And then, so you think, you guys are saying you were having issues at 12 and 13. So let's work with 12 being the lowest number. If you're having issues at 12, and for the majority of people, most of their issues continue from age 12 right up until, let's say, 20. Yeah, that's 8 years that person has been unguided. Okay, 6 of those years, that person is still legally a child because they're still responsible, or there should be some responsible adult for them. So like I say now, when I come across them on a daily basis, you know, it's not uncommon for, you know, 20-year-olds to tell me that I say to them, sign and print. Yeah, it's a registration form for you to be in my presence for the day. Sign and print your name now. And they'll tell me they can't read or write. And when I first started the job, I thought it was a wind-up, because it is a very confrontational type of post. But it wasn't a wind-up. The young guy, he couldn't read or write. And, you know, as time went on, I met more and more like him. And not only that, I met some grown men, bigger men than myself, in their 50s and 60s, and they couldn't read or write. And I was amazed, like, how do you get through life? Like, yeah, you can do manual things, but, you know, How do you read letters? Do you trust somebody? My mum always used to tell me to make sure that I could read, so that I didn't have to ask anybody to read it for me, because they could tell me anything and I wouldn't know. So know for myself, you know. And I made it a point of doing the best that I could. But these young people also feel, because I'm in a position where I get to talk to them as well, as openly as you possibly could talk to somebody openly, and they tell you, you know, they know they messed up, but even though they're going to do this little thing that they have to do because they got into trouble, there's nothing at the other end. There's no job, there's no nothing, there's whatever. And that's all hurdles against them. And I guess for me, when I started to understand the predicament that they're in, I looked at myself. I'm reasonably well educated. I've had a variety of jobs, decent jobs that have platformed me onto the next job. So I would argue that at my age, I've done okay. By my own standards, I don't think I've done well enough, but that's an argument for myself. But the point that I'm making is that when I'm out of work and I'm looking for work, I will go to these jobs and I'll talk all about my extensive career and all the rest of it. And I'm doing what we'd all do in a job interview, selling myself the best that I possibly can. I don't get the job. Okay, somebody better, I guess, gets the job. But what I think about, especially doing the job that I'm doing now, is those young people who got drugs on their record, crime, assault, battery, this, that, and all the rest of it, that some of these young people have an amazing array of offences. And you think, well, where have you been that you've done so much in your short little time? You know, I'm sort of mid-40s and I've never been arrested. So what, you know, where have you been in, you know, the last 5 years that you've racked up so many convictions against yourself? And you can clearly see why they go back to doing what they do. When I find myself in a situation where I'm broke, I've got no money or whatever, I will try to do whatever I can to make some money. But for me, I will try to do it the legal way. If it's cutting somebody's grass, fixing somebody's car, doing something, painting a fence or doing something, yeah? These young people, they'll look at that and they'll say, well, I ain't cutting nobody's grass for 20 quid or 25 quid. I ain't doing that. Matey down the road's got a package. All I've got to do is take a car that he gives me and drive it to, you know, somewhere up Newcastle and leave it. And that's going to earn me 10, 15,000. Those are the risks that they take. And personally, I'm not prepared to take those risks because I know what it means and what it entails. And it's just not me as a person. But the other thing as well is I get to see people, as I said already, at different stages in their life. So I get to see the, you know, 18 to 22-year-olds. Then I get to see the 30-year-olds. I see some 40-year-olds. And then there's 50s and 60s, you know, people in their 60s are still committing offences. Like just, you know, drunk driving. Why, you know, why are you here, old man? Oh, my daughter's boyfriend got a bit heavy-handed, so I went round there and I filled him in. And you're like, mate, you're 60 years old and you still doing that? Why not send your son round there and do that? You know what I mean? And that's just, and it's, when you look at the thing, it's a career thing. But more importantly, I think listening to the older generation of criminals, there was a code of conduct even within the criminal elements, and that has been lost. Money now is the boss. Money rules, well, it rules everybody. Okay, it makes, you know, kids that used to go to Sunday school now go and rob the church that they went to, you know. And yeah, to a certain extent, we are, as the elders, if you will, and society, we've allowed it to happen. If you are arrested and convicted, you're given a mediocre sentence that allows you to, you know, to get away. I see a hand show. One second. I just wanted to mention something. For argument's sake, on Friday, the guys that killed that police officer last year by dragging him on the back of their car for almost a mile, stripping his body literally of its skin and its flesh down to his skeleton when they found him, you know, and they given manslaughter. Yeah. So understand what the stakes are here. You're a serving police officer, okay? You attend a call, and when you get there, there's a theft in progress. You and your colleagues go to apprehend the suspect, and you lose your life in the manner that he did. And the best that society could do for you and your family is to give those three individuals an opportunity at a second chance for their life, because basically that's what manslaughter is, right? They'll give you 17 years manslaughter, and we all know the half rule, and then you add on a sprinkle of good behavior, and they'll be out in 7. And they're young men too. They're all 20, 21, 12. I think the eldest one is 23. So you think even at 23, you get manslaughter, as I've said, good behavior, you'll be out by the time you're 30. So, and look what you're going to prison for the death of somebody else. So, you know, what higher crime than you know, child abuse? Then, you know, what does it have to take for society at the top level that, you know, if somebody knocks my door, tries to come through my window now, I'm going to put a bat on them. But society tell me I'm wrong. I'm to wait till I'm half killed, my children are abused, yeah, my wife sexually assaulted, before I call the police. Yeah, they call it the Tony Martin syndrome. Remember up in Norfolk when he shot them 2 boys broken into his house a couple years ago, and they jailed him, and it caused consternation, and they had to let him go in the end, because after all, they were breaking into his house. But this is where we are again. So, you know, these young kids, they have no scruples about going to prison. They're not worried about it like you and I would be worried about it. There's no deterrent. And that is, I think, the biggest problem that society has contributed to at the minute. I give way now, sorry.
Do you think that like they are so institutionalized? Do you think that it is safer for them in there? That's why they keep coming out and keep reoffending. Do you think that they feel safer, like eventually, like inside than what they do outside? I've heard in Norwich Prison it's just a party in there, because they're all in there together.
I think, yeah, being institutionalized is one thing. There's, you know, that's like a whole nother argument for another day. But briefly, what I've been told is it's not necessarily something. All right, let me try and break it down. Some people look for that comradeship. Okay, so let's say they've spent 3 years in prison, same block, same wing, and life is a gravy train in there, basically, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But then you get released and you get released to a different area, miles and miles away, don't know no one. They don't hold your hand like they used to. Yeah, they don't hold your hand anymore. They say, right, we're coming for you at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and we're going to turf you out. And that's literally what they do. They give you your possessions, what you came in with, and you're out. The most they might give you is the money that you've earned, you know, in the time that you've been in there. And depending on your family circle outside, that also dictates a lot as to why people react the way that they do. Because if you don't have no one really checking you while you're in prison, then you ain't no one when you come out. And, you know, for argument's sake, there was a time, even for myself, I'd not used the bus for about 2 years. And I got on the bus and I said to the man, yeah, I'm just going down the road here, mate. How much is that? And I had change in my hand. He said, where you been, mate? He said, we haven't used cash on buses for 2 years. It's all Oyster. This was down in London. And I was like, yeah, I had to get off the bus. That was it. My car broke down. So I had to get a bus now, only a short journey, but I just got on the bus and went to pay with cash. Man's telling me, no, mate. And there was a question he said to me. He said, where have you been? He said, we ain't used cash for 2 years on the bus. I was like, you're joking, mate. Serious, people standing on the bus looking at me like, right, well, you must have just come out of prison, you know? But again, some people say, you know, when they come out, they don't know what things cost. They find it really difficult to adjust and all the rest of it. So they go back for the friendship. Other people have told me, and even in my time as an officer myself, I dealt with a lot of homeless people. And there was a time where, you know, I could go and arrest the same person 3-4 times a day. Now, people say, how does that work? It works where the person is prolific, but the items that they're stealing are not in the public interest. So what I mean by that is, you know, a homeless person will often go into like Marks and Spencer's, as it was at the time where I worked, and steal a sandwich. Okay? They'll open the sandwich. The minute it's open, it's defaced. Okay? It's a food product. Got to get rid of it. So it's a loss to the shop. Okay? A waste of resources because it is only a sandwich. But the threshold test is it in the public interest? Okay? About this man stealing the sandwich. That determines what the custody sergeant's going to do and what a judge will do. Okay? Because the judge might look at it, because you could charge him with theft. It's theft. He stole it. Just bottom line, he stole it. All right? No messing about. So the offence is committed. But you run the risk of processing him, putting him into court for the judge to say, how much did the sandwich cost?
Yeah.
And you look and you see the sandwich cost 99p because he's stealing it deliberately from the reduced bit, because he knows that when they see it's 99p, they're just gonna. So it's cost more in keeping the individual overnight in the police cell than the sandwich is worth. And now you've brought him in front of the judge. So what happens is the judges throw the cases out all of the time. So when you go out and you make an arrest, you could book the person in and the sergeant will think, well, he's done this before, I'm just going to let him out. And they go and they do it again. And I speak to them and I say, look, mate, you're making my life here difficult. I've already put you in there 3 times. Why are you doing this? And it made sense. And the guy said to me, he said, I'm doing it, mate, because it's October now. And by next month, it's going to be freezing and I don't want to be out here. So and I said to him, so you're going to deliberately put yourself in prison to stay out? He said, yeah, bruv, yeah. Warm in there, 3 square meals a day. We clothes are like dry and clean and all that. And you can still get your drugs in there. So when you say institutionalized, some people treat, you know, we all moaning about we can't go on holiday because of lockdown. Yeah. But other than lockdown, you have a religious summer holiday every year. You go on holiday. Well, it's the same for these guys. When summer's out like now, There'd be the ones you see down the park, you know, with no top on, all their tattoos out, pacing up and down the street with their baseball cap on backwards. You know, come September, they all disappear because they go and make themselves available for jail. Yeah.
Great. So how do we cover the health topics? Because in with all of that, you've got drinks and you've got drugs, haven't you? That's what we're around, isn't it? So we're saying that it's coming from learned behaviour and peer pressure and those around us. How do they replace that? You see what I'm saying? It's hard. And we can talk now. You can talk all you want because we're older. But there was a stage where that was us fighting for that kind of a survival life. So for myself, role models, they're looking for role models in places that are not there at the minute. There's a lot of people's, when you look at the history of the crime and you relate back to their childhood, they're surrounded by that anyway. They're surrounded by, not everyone, but I'm just saying they're surrounded by that kind of party life or whatever the parents are doing, or not paying attention or paying attention. For myself, my environment was a life of crime, a life of partying, a life of crime. You know, around me, that was my environment, and you've got that. How can anyone get close to anyone? You know, I was brought up, and we talked about this. I'm running out of time as well. And I talked about this. I was brought up. My father was at my age, at young age for me, prison. Where was my role model going to be? Where is my role model? So now I'm going to look for an older man now because he resembles somebody fun like your dad, somebody who can handle themselves, and somebody that will just tell you to just do one. So I learned a lot from him in how to sort of be tomboyish, how to sort of defend myself. And I'll never forget the time where people came to get my dad. And when they came to get my dad, I'm at a teenage age where I'm going to defend my father now. I'm thinking, no, he's trained me. Wow. That's going to be a very, very dangerous situation. The kids are watching this stuff, you know? And I was a kid myself, having to defend my father, you know, thinking he was going to lose his life to crime. And not something these kids should be seeing. The kids should be a kid. And they need guidance. But unfortunately, you've got a lot of single parents out there. You have a lot of hard work out there for single parents. And the tug to and fro of who's the best parent, I'd rather there be parenting together than, you know, that co-parent together in a way of healthy, educational way. But there's been too many arguments between man and woman, woman and child, when it comes to raising up children. Hence why you've got these children out there isolating themselves, building their family somewhere else because they can't take the ism at home. They can't stand the two tug of war that they feel like they're a weapon. So they're going outside. Natural Mystique, would you like to add any value to that? You work, and Andy, because you work with children, you work with youth.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to kind of pick up on a couple of the points that have been raised so far. I mean, it's like how kind of fights have progressed over the years. I mean, I remember back in the day getting into a fight in a pub. I was probably about 18, 19, and one of the little tables got knocked over and some glasses got smashed. And all of a sudden, everyone kind of stopped fighting. Oh, let's just pick up the glass so no one gets hurt. And then once we picked up the glass, we then started fighting, and it was always fists and things like that. It was never, you know, no one ever pulled out a knife or anything like that. It was just completely unheard of. And I think with education these days, kids are being taught how to pass exams. They're not being taught anything useful. So as was mentioned, you know, you got, you know, young people leaving school and they haven't got a clue how to change a light bulb or, you know, do anything that's actually of use, but they can tell you who painted a particular painting from, you know, 200 years ago. And it just, what's the point in all of that? And I think the way, I think people have become a lot more materialistic, and with music and films and things like that, you're given these very distorted icons of what is cool or what is fashionable and things like that. And young people want the latest trainers or want the latest baseball cap or want this, and it's all money. And when you're, you know, a struggling parent or a single parent or things like that, and money is tight, then you can't give your children that sort of thing. And unless they're willing to accept the odd hand-me-down, or, you know, there's a fake one from down the road, you know, I managed to get hold of, and they go, well, it's not real because I'm wearing it. So that seems to be a lot of what's going on. And a lot of the young people that I work with, you tend to find that whilst the issues that I'm dealing with aren't as extreme as some of the ones that have been mentioned tonight, you tend to find that it's always they find sort of difficulty in understanding what it's like to be a teenager, because they are growing up far too quickly, and they're not kicking back and enjoying themselves and playing in parks and climbing trees. And you know, it's not quite as bad as you get in the States, where you've got a very definite blame culture in the USA, where everybody's sort of wrapped up in bubble wrap, because, you know, if you fall over and hurt yourself, then you've got someone to point the finger of blame at and sue. So it's not quite as bad as that here, but I think there's a lot of people kind of thinking, well, you know, if I trip over a paving slab, you know, and twist my ankle or something, I can sue the council for some money. And it's like, no, maybe you should look where you're going. You know, there's been cracked paving slabs for generations. You know, just look where you're going. Don't try and sort of make a fast buck out of somebody else. And I think also the issue with you know, county lines and things like that. I mean, I always understood it. It was a relatively new phenomenon, but it seems that, you know, there's elements of it have been going for a very, very long time, and it may not have been targeted as being, you know, obviously sort of calling it county lines, but there's been obviously, you know, you quite often you get, you know, you'd be approached by somebody in a car park and say, oh, do you want to buy, you know, a TV or a length of carpet? And they could be somebody, you know, from somewhere else in the country. But eventually you kind of work it out that this is just knocked off gear, but this being sold, you know, elsewhere rather than on someone else's doorstep. But yeah, young people do suffer quite a bit, and I think trying to tackle that is probably the most important thing, so that they don't fall into the trap of sort of being sort of caught up in the drug culture, and kind of having a kind of a more positive attitude and a can-do attitude as well.
Yeah, I think what's available, that's the thing that parents are looking for, what's available. But whether or not you get the teenagers to go or not, that's a different thing. But I think, you know, for many people that are listening to this, if you can try and get a date with these individuals, where you can get an explanation and time to talk and trying to understand, then do that. But it is going to be hard. I know it's hard. It's very hard trying to keep children safe, no matter who they are. It's really difficult. And all we can do is try and be a good role model, and we know where those role models are coming from when we reflect as an adult, and we say, who was your role model? Well, it wasn't going to be who was your role model. Look at it. Are you actually going to say your mum or your dad? How many people can say my mother or my father? You know,
I do, definitely. My dad was my role model.
Yeah, me too.
My mum wasn't, absolutely, but my dad was.
No, I was lucky. I had the balance on both sides. Anything to do with cars or just man stuff, that's what my dad showed me, you know, or taught me rather. And on the flip side, my mum, although my dad had a strong sense of education is important, but it was my mum who was the driving force behind that, even down to the way that I speak Now, every time I open my mouth, I think of my mum, because she always told me to, speak the Queen's English. That's what she always said. Perhaps it's a colonial thing coming from the West Indies that had a very strong UK presence up until mid 60s, when most of the islands all declared independence and stuff. But she certainly wouldn't have allowed me to adopt any sort of slang. Bearing in mind that I'm from London, pardon me, and typically in London, the only slang was the Cockney slang, which I do possess every now and again. But anything that was rude or offensive or anything like that was sort of battered at very quickly, straight. No messing about. So yeah.
Lisa, would you like to come and say where some people can be directed, please, or have your say?
Yeah, forgive me for not having my camera on. I've got a pounding headache, so I'm sitting in the dark. But yeah, you guys have kind of reiterated my thoughts and stuff, so don't think there's a need to be a parrot. So yeah, thank you for sort of just highlighting and raising awareness.
Yeah, but I thought for me that isn't there like Boys Academy and these academy things that you can throw out here, where some viewers that are listening can direct to get some mentoring from?
There are a lot of mentoring facilities out there, depending on where you're located. I do find that London has a lot of them, and I'm also part of a mentoring group in Luton. So I would, in all honesty, I wouldn't sort of recommend a particular name of a mentoring service, because I think it's down to the individual. But if there was just to have a look on Google for a local mentoring service, I think that would be a wise option, because then they would find something local as well, because not everybody can reach the sort of programs that I'm involved in. Like I said, one's in London, one's in Luton, but there are a lot of mentoring services out there, and also a lot of recommendations by speaking to other parents, and speaking to the schools, because at times they are affiliated with charities and mentoring programs outside of school services. So I would definitely just do your due diligence in that respect. So yeah, I think a mentoring service is also a great way to add value to your child's life if there's something at home that you're struggling with, and just having other parents' opinions and objectives and their experiences can definitely, like the village phrases,
Yeah,
the child.
brilliant. I mean, we did the school last year. No, this year it was July. We did it this year actually for careers before the COVID, and it was quite depressing actually to know how many children actually don't actually know about how to handle their emotions. They actually don't. They will tell you that their parents have mental health, but don't really know what to do, what numbers to call, and this, that, and the other. So education around those areas of anyone that's in a position to do, I would like to come in and talk to the children, offer up that experience to the schools. They would gladly accept it. Anyone would gladly accept mentoring somewhere along the line where you can get education, where it's rehabilitation. For us, we have information to try and put people on track, and we're talking about behaviour. But again, like I said, I recognise that it's not easy for everyone. We're just trying to catch people a little bit early with awareness. That's all we can do. Let them analyse their own home lives and look at their own, reflect back on their own situations and say, am I participating with any of this? I mean, particularly these games, the pacifiers, they're, I'm aware of the time, sorry, they're pacifiers, these games sometimes, and it's just a babysitter. So I think, the communication is lost there of that, and there's a lot of addiction between those games and what they're playing as well. I think things need to be monitored more. If you're experiencing any problems with your any problem whatsoever, there is an option to have a conversation. Joe Blogs here, you can always drop a message and we can get a message to him to speak, because he has a lot of experience with the criminal behavior and rehabilitation. That's the most important part, is the rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is kind of what we do also. It's a CBT kind of a, I don't know, it's real talk, isn't it? It's this real talk of reality, you know. We can't beat around the bush about the effects of crime, what it does to people. And so awareness is what we're going to do. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys for spreading awareness with us.
Thank
I'll
you.
stay out with the advert. So
Take care.
yeah, no, thank you. I mean, I wish there was more time, but there isn't. So we'll go there then.
Right.
Thanks. I'm just going to
Bye.
play out with this. Bye bye.
I will be the change that I want to see in this world. I will be the change that I want to see in this world.
That's what's available. We've got one more face to add.